Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled, the deep dive designed to cut through the noise and deliver the essential insights on the future shaping our world.
Today, we're really getting into what feels like the biggest tension point right now, certainly of the mid-2020s, the AI revolution.
Right.
I mean, everyone agrees it's probably the most transformative technology of our lifetime. But then you look at the actual economic data.
Nothing.
Well, not nothing, but the huge disruption everyone was, bracing for. It hasn't really shown up in the big numbers. Not yet.
It's like you hear the announcement for the train loud and clear, but it hasn't actually pulled into the station. It creates this really strange paradox, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's a paradox.
And our dedicated research team, they've been digging into this, looking at data from, what was it, late September, early October 2025.
That's right. And their findings really highlight this deceptive calm, as they put it.
Deceptive calm, I like that.
Yeah, because it masks these huge structural shifts that are happening, just maybe under the surface for now.
So for you listening, the whole point of this deep dive today on Tomorrow Unveiled is to try and square that circle, reconcile the hype, the fear about mass automation.
With the reality, the current stability we see in the numbers.
Yeah, because understanding that mismatch, that's where the real story is, isn't it?
That's the core focus for Tomorrow Unveiled today. We need to get past the headlines and figure out why the overall economy seems okay, even while, corporate leaders are sounding the alarm bells.
Right. The anxiety in the C-suite seems sky high.
It is. So we've broken this down into three main areas, three pillars, to give you a clearer picture of this.
Yeah?
Well, this weird moment we're in.
Okay, what's first?
First up, the labor market paradox. We really need to unpack the difference between individuals using AI to get better at their jobs, that's augmentation, and companies using AI to completely redesign how work gets done, that's automation. They're very different things.
Augmentation, now automation. Coming soon.
Pretty much. Then second, we'll look at the education crisis, because students are all over these AI tools.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But are they actually learning how to use them wisely or ethically? There's a huge gap in AI literacy, both for students and, frankly, for a lot of faculty, too.
That sounds like a problem waiting to happen.
It could be. And it ties into inequality, too. And third,
we tackle governance and economics. Why are our old ways of measuring the economy, like GDP, maybe missing the point with AI?
right, AI creates value, but not always in ways that show up in the traditional numbers.
And that confusion, it's fueling these huge policy debates, isn't it? About, wealth distribution, regulation, what the future social contract even looks like.
Exactly. Big questions. So that's the plan. Let's dive in. Okay, so let's start with the job market, because that's where the contradiction just jumps out at you.
Yeah, I remember when ChatGPT and similar tools exploded onto the scene, late 2022, the immediate reaction was panic, right? Especially for white-collar jobs.
Full panic. Headlines were everywhere. The robots are coming for your desk job.
But our research team looked at the actual numbers, the aggregate data for the last 3 years or so, and it tells a surprisingly different story. One of stability.
Remarkable stability, actually. When you look at the big picture, the overall labor market hasn't seen a discernible disruption since these tools went mainstream.
Okay, no discernible disruption. What does that mean in practice? Like fewer layoffs than expected?
It means the jobs apocalypse just didn't happen, at least not yet. The rate at which the mix of jobs is changing, some roles declining, others growing, it's happening at a pace pretty similar to past tech shifts.
Like the PC revolution or the internet boom.
Exactly. Think about those eras. They caused huge changes, but it was more of a gradual adjustment over years, not an overnight collapse.
Okay.
And the research team found that the share of the workforce whose jobs are significantly exposed to AI, meaning many tasks could be automated, that number has held pretty steady, around 18%.
So 18% exposure hasn't translated into mass unemployment. It suggests people are adapting, maybe? Tasks are changing within jobs?
That seems to be the case. Adjustment? Yes. Annihilation? No. At least not based on the data up to early October 2025.
Okay, that's the current reality. Stability. But here's the pivot, the paradox. Because when you talk to executives, the people making the decisions, the looming intent, as you called it, that paints a totally different picture. Why the disconnect? Why is C-suite fear so high if the market looks okay?
Because they aren't looking at last quarter's numbers. They're looking 2-3 years down the road. They're planning.
Planning for?
Big changes. Our researchers surveyed, I think it was over 1,000 C-suite execs globally. The results were, frankly, stark.
How so?
Okay, get this. 92%, 92 report, they already see significant workforce overcapacity in their companies.
Overcapacity, meaning too many people for the work needed once automation kicks in.
Exactly. They estimate up to 20% overcapacity in what they call legacy roles. Think routine tasks, administrative stuff, things AI is getting good at.
Hold on. 92% of leaders think maybe one-fifth of their current staff in certain areas could already be redundant, theoretically, if the AI was fully implemented.
That's what the data suggests they believe. It's a huge potential overhang on the labor force, like a shadow workforce waiting to be, well, reduced.
That's unnerving.
And it's coupled with the other side of the coin, the skills crisis. 94% of those same leaders say they face critical shortages of people with the skills needed to actually build, deploy, and manage these AI systems.
So they feel they have too many people doing the old stuff and nowhere near enough people who can do the new stuff.
Precisely. It's a massive mismatch. And to really underscore their intentions, half of these leaders expect that overcapacity number, the redundancy, to hit 30% or more by 2028.
30% by 2028.
Wow. So this tells us the transformation isn't canceled, it's just delayed. It takes time to rewire a whole company to integrate these systems deeply. But the intent for significant automation, it seems absolutely locked in.
Okay, this makes sense then. This brings us right to that key distinction you mentioned earlier, the difference between augmentation and automation.
Yes. This is critical to understanding why things look stable now. We're mostly in the augmentation phase.
Right. Augmentation is what exactly? Me using an AI to help draft emails or summarize a report?
That's exactly it. It's the initial phase. It's productive, definitely, but it's not fundamentally disruptive to the job role itself.
It makes the individual worker maybe 10, 20% faster, more efficient.
Something like that. The AI acts like a helper, a co-pilot. It assists with tasks within your existing job. It enhances your productivity, but it doesn't eliminate your role.
And this augmentation, it's widespread now, right? That
Yep.
research team had numbers on that.
Oh, the usage is staggering, 75%. Three-quarters of global knowledge workers are now using generative AI tools regularly.
75%, that's huge. That's up massively from a year or two ago.
A threefold increase, according to the research team's analysis.
Right.
And people are seeing real benefits. They're producing, on average, 10% more documents.
Okay.
They're handling complex customer queries faster. They're spending about 4% less time just drowning in email because the AI can handle routine replies or draft initial responses.
Yeah, I can see that. Like the paralegal example you mentioned earlier, summarizing huge documents instantly. That's productivity boost, not necessarily job loss.
Exactly. It's augmentation.
Yeah.
You're still the paralegal. We're just a faster, maybe more effective paralegal.
Okay. So that explains the current stability and the productivity gains. My job title's the same, but I'm using these tools daily. But you're arguing this is just the calm before the storm. The real disruption comes with automation.
Precisely. Because corporate strategy, long-term, isn't just about giving everyone a helpful chatbot sidekick. It's much bigger than that.
What's the bigger goal then?
It's about fundamentally restructuring entire workflows, entire value chains, integrating AI services deeply, seamlessly, eliminating handoff points, automating routine decisions, making the process intelligent, not just helping the individual worker.
And that's the wave that's coming.
That's the ways that's being built right now. And the research team found evidence of this by looking beyond consumer chatbot use, right? They looked at corporate API usage.
Yes, the back end stuff. How companies are plugging AI into their actual business operations.
And that data tells a different story. 77%, over three-quarters of those corporate internal use cases, are aimed squarely at deep automation, reengineering workflows.
77% for automation compared to, what was it for individual users? More like 50-50 augmentation automation?
Roughly, yes. Businesses are heavily focused on the automation side. Think about things like automatically screening 90% of job applications before a human ever sees them.
Okay.
Or using AI to generate complex financial fraud reports with maybe just a final human check at the end. That kind of deep integration.
And that kind of integration, it takes time. It's complex. It requires investment.
Exactly. It's difficult. You have to change systems, retrain people, manage the transition. That explains the lag we're seeing in the job market numbers.
Right. The potential is there, the intent is there, but the full implementation is still unfolding.
But once those automated workflows are fully optimized, well, the need for human labor in those specific operational roles drops, sometimes dramatically.
So that lag, that gap between the potential and the current reality, That's the deceptive calm.
I think that captures it perfectly.
Okay. So the change isn't stalled, it's just brewing, being designed in boardrooms and IT departments right now.
That's the strong indication from the research, yes. And it's going to manifest more visibly in the job market over the next, say, 3 to 5 years.
And this shift, it's not just about eliminating jobs, it's fundamentally changing what jobs are, right? Moving away from static roles.
Absolutely. The whole idea of a fixed job description, a static role you do for years, that era is fading fast. We're moving rapidly towards what the researchers call the hybrid worker,
Hybrid worker.
meaning the value, the premium, is shifting. It's no longer just about your specific domain knowledge being a great accountant, say. It's about combining that domain expertise with AI fluency.
So you have to be a great accountant who also knows how to leverage AI to do 80% of the routine ledger work and maybe audit the AI's output.
Exactly. Or think about engineering. Instead of just drafting detailed designs, maybe you're managing the broader system, defining the parameters, while AI handles generating the specific code scaffolding or checking compliance documentation.
That requires a totally different mindset. Less doing the task, more managing the system that does the
It's
task.
a huge psychological shift.
And
And it demands this constant learning, which leads us to the reskilling imperative.
the need to constantly update skills. How big is this challenge?
The research team points to studies suggesting 40% of the global workforce will need significant reskilling within the next 3 years. 40%.
Just 3 years.
Yeah.
That's immense. That's not just a nice-to-have training budget item. That's fundamental.
It's an urgent demand on companies, on governments, on individuals, and it's driving this new and maybe slightly unsettling corporate strategy the researchers call talent rotation.
Talent rotation. Okay, that sounds intense. Both necessary, maybe, but also potentially quite disruptive for employees.
It's exactly that. Necessary from the company's perspective, perhaps, but potentially chilling for the workforce.
So what is it exactly? How does it work?
It's basically a high-stakes corporate strategy. Companies systematically start evaluating their current employees not just on past performance, but on their perceived adaptability, their potential to learn new AI-related skills quickly.
How do they measure something like adaptability?
They're developing metrics around what some call learning velocity. How fast can you pick up and effectively use a new AI tool or integrate it into your workflow?
Learning velocity. Okay.
And based on that assessment, the strategy is twofold. Aggressively retrain and redeploy the adaptable ones into these new higher-value hybrid roles.
And the others? The ones deemed less adaptable or maybe unwilling?
They get transitioned out. That's the term often used.
Transitioned out, a corporate euphemism for laid off.
Essentially, yes. Or managed out. It fundamentally shifts the implied contract between employer and employee.
How so?
It moves away from security based on tenure or past loyalty, I've worked here 20 years, towards something the researchers call continuous conditional employability.
Continuous conditional employability, meaning your job is only secure as long as you can keep learning the next thing the company needs.
Pretty much. Your value is defined by your demonstrated capacity to constantly learn and adapt, not just by your historical contribution.
Wow. The psychological pressure of that must be immense. Even for people who are adaptable, the goalposts are constantly shifting.
It creates profound anxiety because you never quite feel secure. You always have to prove you're ready for what's next.
And this pressure, this transition, it's not hitting everyone equally, is it? The research highlighted a really concerning gendered impact.
Yes, this is a critical point, and it came through strongly in the data our research team analyzed. It confirms findings from multiple sources.
What did it show?
It shows that jobs predominantly held by women are facing a disproportionately higher risk of disruption from automation.
How much higher?
Significantly higher. Looking at the U.S. data specifically, the research found that 79%, nearly 4 out of 5 employed women, work in jobs classified as high risk for automation.
79%. Compared to what for men?
Compared to 58% for men.
Wow, that's a huge gap, a 21 percentage point difference. Why such a disparity? What kinds of jobs are we talking about?
It reflects where female employment has historically been concentrated. Many women work in roles involving routine cognitive tasks, the very tasks that current AI is becoming exceptionally good at. Think about accounting clerks, payroll specialists, insurance claims adjusters, paralegals doing document review, content moderation, a lot of mid-level administrative support roles.
Jobs that involve processing information, applying rules, managing schedules, things algorithms can learn.
Exactly. They're highly susceptible to being augmented to the point of elimination or automated outright.
And the risk here is obvious, without really targeted interventions.
Like specific reskilling programs aimed at these sectors where women are concentrated.
We could see existing gender gaps in pay and employment get much, much worse.
That's the major concern. It requires proactive policy to prevent AI from deepening those divides. It's a staggering disparity that needs attention now.
Okay, this seems like a good moment to pause and bring in our listeners. We love hearing your thoughts. Whether you're on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, leave a comment and let us know what you think about this shift toward continuous conditional employability. How are you feeling about talent rotation in your own field or industry? Let us know.
All right, so moving from the current workforce to the next generation,
Yeah.
let's talk about education.
Yeah, the place that's supposed to be preparing people for that future of talent rotation and hybrid work.
Exactly. But what our research team uncovered here is, well, another paradox, maybe even more concerning.
Which is?
You have overwhelming adoption of AI tools by students, paired with critically low levels of actual understanding or literacy about how these tools work, their limits, their ethics.
Okay, let's break that down. Start with the educational adoption surge. Students are using this stuff, right? A lot.
Oh, absolutely. The numbers are incredible. 90% of students globally are using AI for academic purposes in some way. 90%.
We're definitely not waiting for the curriculum to catch up.
Not at all. They've jumped right in. The research suggests up to 2/3 of students are using generative chatbots like ChatGPT or similar tools on a weekly basis.
Weekly. Wow. For what?
Everything. Brainstorming ideas, checking grammar, summarizing readings, sometimes even generating first drafts of papers.
So, for many students, AI isn't just a tool. It's become a fundamental part of how they study, how they do their work.
It really has. It's replacing some of the more tedious aspects of research or writing for them.
And look, when these tools are used well, when they're implemented thoughtfully by educators, the results can be amazing, right? The research team found actual learning gains.
Huge gains.
Yeah.
When you use personalized AI learning systems correctly, systems that adapt to the individual student's pace and style, they can boost outcomes by up to 30% compared to traditional teaching.
30%. That's significant.
And it gets better. In what are called active learning environments, where the AI acts more like a smart tutor interacting with the student, test scores can improve by as much as 54%.
54% boost in test scores. That's revolutionary potential. It could really change the game for learning quality and maybe even equity.
It absolutely could. The potential is immense. But, and this is the big but.
Here comes the paradox.
Here comes the paradox. That potential is being seriously undermined by the competency and guidance gap.
Meaning?
Meaning, despite using these tools constantly, students themselves admit they're not ready. A critical 58% of students say they don't feel they have enough AI knowledge and skills for the future workplace.
So wait, they use it all the time, but more than half of them feel like they don't actually understand it well enough for what comes next.
Exactly. They know how to get an answer from the chatbot. They're proficient users in that sense.
Right, they can write a decent prompt.
But they're not necessarily literate about it. Do they understand the risks of bias in the training data? Can they spot when the AI is confidently making stuff up, hallucinating? Do they know how to critically evaluate the output or use it ethically?
Probably not in many cases. It's like giving someone a really powerful chainsaw, but no safety training or understanding of kickback.
That's a good analogy. They lack the guardrails, the critical thinking framework around the tool.
And this isn't helped by the institutions, is it? There's a faculty lag.
A severe lag. The research found only about 61% of faculty are incorporating AI into their teaching at all.
Only 61%. And how deep does that incorporation go?
Often, not very deep. For many, it might just be a mention in the syllabus about academic integrity, or maybe one assignment using an AI tool. Very few are systematically integrating AI literacy across their courses.
Why is that? Are they resistant or just overwhelmed?
I think it's often the latter. Many educators, especially those outside computer science or related fields, feel like they're just starting their own journey to understand this stuff. They often lack the training, the resources, the institutional support to confidently redesign their teaching methods around AI.
So you've got the situation. Students are using incredibly powerful tools daily, often without real guidance.
while the faculty and the institution are struggling to catch up.
That seems unsustainable. It basically means the traditional way universities update curriculum, which is already slow.
It's completely broken in the face of AI. Curricula can take years to go through committees, get approved, get implemented. AI capabilities change in months, sometimes weeks.
So what's the answer? How do we fix that?
The research really stresses that AI literacy can't just be an elective or something only for tech students. It needs to become a fundamental competency.
Like reading, writing, arithmetic, and AI literacy. For everyone.
Essentially, yes. Core to every discipline. Whether you're studying history, law, medicine, art, you need to understand how AI impacts your field, how to use the tools responsibly, how to evaluate their outputs, how to understand their biases.
It needs to be woven into the fabric of education, not just bolted on.
Exactly.
Okay. And this whole education crisis, the gap between usage and literacy, it gets even worse when you factor in the digital divide, right?
Exponentially worse. AI has the potential to take existing inequalities in access to technology and just blow them wide open, turn a gap into a chasm.
Because you need the infrastructure first, internet access devices.
And the global picture there is, frankly, pretty grim. The research highlights some stark numbers. Globally, only 40% of primary schools even have internet access.
Only 40%. So 60% of the world's primary schools are offline. How can they possibly participate in an AI-driven education future?
They can't, not easily. And it's worse in some regions. In Africa, that number drops even lower.
Wow.
And think about home access. The World Bank estimates 1.3 billion school-age kids worldwide don't have internet at home. That's a huge barrier to leveraging these tools for homework or self-study.
And this isn't just a developing world issue, is it? Even within developed countries, there are gaps. But let's talk specifics. The research mentioned India as a case study.
Yes, in India, over a third of schools lack even basic computer labs or internet access.
A third, even the basics are missing.
Right. And even where there is some connectivity, it's often not good enough. You need decent bandwidth to run complex AI learning platforms or stream interactive content.
And the computers themselves might be ancient?
Often, yes. Old hardware that can't run modern software can't handle AI applications. So
Yeah.
if you try to roll out these sophisticated AI-first learning models,
Without fixing that fundamental infrastructure gap first.
you inevitably just deepen the inequalities. The well-resourced schools, the urban centers, the kids with good tech at home, they leap ahead. Everyone else gets left further behind.
It sounds like a perfect recipe for the Matthew effect. You know, to those who have, more will be given. Applied to learning.
That's exactly the danger. It creates this dangerous feedback loop.
How so?
Students who already have the advantages of good internet, modern devices, maybe parents who understand the tech they use AI to accelerate their learning, they get those 30, 40, 50% boosts in outcomes we talked about.
Right, setting an even higher bar for success.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the students without access, they don't just miss out on the AI advantage, they fall further behind relative to their peers. The baseline keeps rising, powered by AI,
Yeah.
and they're stuck at the starting line.
So AI, which has this potential to personalize and maybe even democratize education.
Risks becoming an engine of polarization instead, widening the gaps both within countries and between the global north and south.
That's a really sobering thought. #IV. Redefining economics and governance in the age of abundance.
And these huge challenges we've talked about, the coming automation wave in labor, the literacy gap in education, they're tied together by a deeper problem, an economic and governance problem.
Which is?
Our systems for measuring economic value and our systems for making policy just weren't built for the kind of change AI represents. They're struggling to keep up.
Okay, let's start with the measurement problem. The research team argues that our main economic indicator, gross domestic product, GDP, is basically flawed when it comes to AI. It causes value erosion in the stats.
Yes, that's a key finding. GDP is a poor proxy for the actual value AI creates. It can even make us look poorer when we're actually getting, in some ways, wealthier.
How does that work? How can AI make measured GDP go down? Seems counterintuitive. More productivity should mean more GDP, right?
Usually, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The GDP primarily measures market exchanges,
Yeah.
money changing hands for goods and services. And AI often reduces the need for those market exchanges, even while creating real value. Think about what the researchers call non-market value.
Give me an example.
Okay, say a small business owner needs a new logo and a website. 10 years ago, they'd hire a graphic designer, maybe a web development agency. That's thousands of dollars changing hands, adding to GDP.
Right.
Today, They might use an AI tool to generate logo options and build a decent website themselves in an afternoon for maybe a small subscription fee, or even free.
Okay, so the business owner got value. They saved time. They saved a lot of money. They have a website they needed.
Huge value created for them.
Hmm.
But far less money changed hands in the market. That transaction with the designer of the agency, it didn't happen. So the mere GDP contribution actually falls.
Ah, I see. So society might be better off in terms of capacity, knowledge access, efficiency. The business owner is empowered. But the official economic scorecard, the GDP, looks worse because a market transaction was bypassed.
Precisely. It distorts the picture. And this distortion can really mislead policymakers if they rely too heavily on just GDP figures.
And there's another related problem, right? The imputed value issue. Let's unpack that a bit.
Right. This is especially relevant for service sectors. For many services, think legal advice, consulting, even some medical diagnoses, the value added in national accounts is often calculated based on the cost of the inputs. Primarily, the wages paid to the professionals doing the work.
So the value of a law firm's output is tied to how many hours the expensive lawyers build.
Largely, yes. The cost of that cognitive labor is used as a proxy for the value created. Now, what happens when AI starts automating big chunks of that cognitive labor?
Like AI doing the legal research, drafting standard contracts, handling discovery.
Exactly. If AI does that work much faster and cheaper, reducing the human hours needed, then according to the current GDP math, the measured value add of that legal service sector could actually fall.
Even if the legal advice is just as good, or maybe even faster and more accessible to more people?
Even then. Or think of a medical diagnostic AI. If it provides a highly accurate diagnosis instantly, replacing hours of a specialist's time.
The service got better, faster, maybe cheaper, but the measured GDP contribution shrinks because the expensive human input decreased.
That's the paradox. We could have a society that's genuinely becoming wealthier in terms of capabilities, health outcomes, quality of life, but it looks poor on the official economic statistics.
And that's dangerous because
Because if policymakers see GDP stagnating or falling, they might draw the wrong conclusions. They might think the economy is weak and, say, cut spending on public investment.
like cutting funds for those crucial AI reskilling programs we just talked about precisely when they're needed most.
Exactly. Basing policy on flawed metrics in an AI-driven world is risky.
Okay. So this mismatch, the potential for AI to create huge abundance but also huge displacement, combined with our inability to properly measure it, this inevitably brings us to the policy response. How do we manage this?
And it's reigniting some very old, very fundamental debates. The research highlights the big comeback of the Universal Basic Income UBI discussion.
Right, UBI, giving everyone a regular, unconditional sum of money. Why is that back on the table?
Well, many people, including quite a few tech leaders who are building this AI future, see potentially massive job displacement down the road.
The automation wave finally hitting?
Right. And if that happens on a large scale, they argue we'll need some kind of economic floor to prevent widespread poverty and social unrest. UBI is seen as the most direct way to share the wealth generated by automation.
Have the arguments against UBI changed? You know, the old fears that people would just stop working?
Well, the results from various UBI trials around the world have actually been pretty interesting. They mostly haven't shown people becoming lazy. Often, recipients use the money for education, starting small businesses, improving their health, things that can actually boost economic activity long term.
Okay, but there's still the massive elephant in the room, the fiscal challenge. How do you pay for it? The research team crunched some numbers on that, right?
They did, and the cost is staggering. If you were to give every adult in the U.S., say, $10,000 a year, which is a commonly discussed figure, though maybe not enough to live on,
Okay, $10 a year per adult. How much does that cost?
roughly $3 trillion per year,
3 trillion with a T.
with a T, just for the U.S.
Yeah.
To put that in perspective, that's about 3/4 of the entire current federal discretionary budget, the part of the budget Congress decides on each year.
So paying for it would require absolutely massive tax increases or unprecedented levels of government debt. That sounds politically impossible right now.
It's extremely difficult under the current political and fiscal climate.
Yeah.
It's the huge hurdle that UBI proponents haven't fully solved. Where does that $3 trillion realistically come from year after year?
Are the tech leaders who advocate for it proposing concrete funding mechanisms, like taxes on the AI companies themselves or on the automation they enable?
Some are starting to talk about that, yes. Things like robot taxes or taxes on data usage. But it's leading to exploration of alternatives to pure UBI as well.
Alternatives that might be more targeted or maybe funded differently.
Exactly. One idea gaining traction again is the negative income tax.
Okay, refresh my memory on that one.
Instead of giving everyone money, a negative income tax only provides support to people below a certain income threshold. If you earn above it, you pay taxes as normal. If you earn below it, the government pays you, topping up your income.
So it's more targeted at poverty reduction, less universal.
Right, which makes it significantly cheaper than UBI, potentially
Right.
more politically palatable.
Interesting. Any other alternatives being floated?
There are also more philosophical ideas emerging, trying to link citizens directly to the wealth being created. Concepts like universal basic ownership or universal basic capital.
Universal basic ownership, meaning we all own a tiny piece of the AI companies?
Sort of. The idea is to give every citizen some kind of non-dilutable stake, like shares in the assets generating the future wealth, whether that's the AI companies themselves or maybe the massive data sets they rely on, or funds that invest in automation.
So instead of just getting a government check, people get dividends from the automated economy.
That's the logic. The argument is that since AI builds on decades of public research, shared human knowledge, and data generated by all of us, the public deserves a direct, ongoing return on the capital that emerges from it.
That's a radical shift in thinking about ownership.
It is. But whether it's UBI, negative income tax, or universal basic ownership, the underlying point the research highlights is that there's a growing consensus. The old social contract based on everyone having a stable full-time job, that might need a fundamental rethink in the age of AI. The how is still fiercely debated, but the need for change is becoming clearer.
Okay. So massive economic and social questions. How are governments actually trying to govern this transition?
The research contrasted different approaches, right?
Yeah.
Yes, fundamentally, two different models seem to be emerging globally for how states are trying to get a handle on advanced AI.
Model 1.
Model one is what the researchers call reactive regulation. Think legal frameworks, risk mitigation, setting rules for the private sector after the tech is already being developed or deployed.
Guardrails, trying to prevent the worst outcomes.
Exactly. And the prime example highlighted is California.
Right. With their recent law, the Transparency and Frontier AI Act, SB 53, what did that actually do? It was focused on the really powerful AI models, right?
Yes, specifically what they call frontier models. These are the massive cutting-edge AI systems, defined in the law by the sheer amount of computing power used to train them over 10 to the 26 floating point operations per second, or FLOPs.
Okay, 10 to the 26th FLOPs. That's a ridiculously huge number. Hard to even comprehend. It basically means models way beyond what's public today.
Precisely. They're trying to regulate the potential capabilities of the next generation of AI giants before they fully arrive.
And what does the regulation require them to do?
It mandates detailed transparency reports on how they're managing risks. Crucially, it requires them to report any critical safety incidents to the state's Office of Emergency Services.
Critical safety incidents. How is that defined? That sounds serious.
It is. The law defines it quite specifically. Any incident potentially causing more than 50 deaths or inflicting over $1 billion in property or economic damage.
50 deaths or $1 billion in damage from an AI incident. They're clearly thinking about large-scale risks here, systemic risks.
Absolutely. And the law also includes strong whistleblower protections for employees who report safety concerns about these frontier models, with hefty penalties for companies that retaliate.
So it's a legalistic approach, setting boundaries, demanding transparency, defining catastrophic failures, and putting penalties in place. Trust, but verify, with teeth.
That's a good summary. It tries to balance allowing innovation in the private sector with creating high-stakes guardrails against the biggest potential harms. That's Model 1, reactive regulation.
Okay. What's Model 2?
Model 2 is quite different. The researchers call it proactive capacity building. Here, the focus isn't just on regulating private companies, it's on fundamentally developing the government's own internal ability to understand, steer, and utilize AI.
Building state competence, not just state rules.
Exactly. And the prime examples here are nations like the United Arab Emirates, UAE, and interestingly, Albania.
The UAE, what are they doing?
Their strategy is less about writing laws for Google or OpenAI and more about making their own government smarter and more agile. They launched a major national fellowship program
But do what?
to train their top 200 government leaders,
Ministers, heads of agencies, and advanced AI concepts and strategic economic thinking related to AI.
Training the top brass. Who's doing the training?
They're partnering with elite global universities known for tech and policy, MIT, Oxford, places like that. The goal is to embed deep AI expertise within the government itself.
So policymakers aren't just reacting to lobbyists or headlines. They actually understand the technology and its economic implications from the inside.
That's the aim, to build a future-ready government workforce capable of proactively steering AI development towards national goals, rather than just reacting to risks after the fact. It's a very different philosophy.
Building internal agility in a bureaucracy. That's ambitious. What about Albania? That seems like a surprising example.
It is, but it's interesting. They took a very direct approach. They appointed an AI virtual minister.
A virtual minister, like an algorithm is in the cabinet?
Not quite. It's more like a dedicated initiative, likely led by humans, focused on integrating AI directly into government operations.
For what purpose?
Their stated goal is to use AI to streamline public services, improve efficiency, and specifically target corruption, maybe in areas like tax collection or permit approvals.
So, using AI as a tool within the state itself to make governance better, cleaner, faster.
Yes. It's another example of proactive capacity building, applying AI to improve the state's own functions, rather than solely focusing on regulating external actors.
Okay, the contrast is really clear. Model 1, California, focuses on legal limits and risk mitigation for private actors. Model 2, UA Albania, focuses on building the state's own internal expertise and using AI to improve government itself. One regulates the threat, the other tries to harness the tool.
That captures the core difference well. Two very different bets on how best to navigate the AI era.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, before we wrap up, a quick reminder for our listeners. If you're listening on a podcast service like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and review for Tomorrow Unveiled. It really does help new listeners discover the show and keeps this important conversation going. #TagV conclusion and final thoughts.
So as we pull these threads together, from the labor market paradox to the education crisis to these contrasting governance models, what emerges is a picture defined by, well, tension, contradiction.
Yeah, the research team really synthesized these into 4 key tensions, didn't they? 4 big contradictions we have to manage right now. Let's recap those quickly.
Absolutely. First, hype versus reality. We have the massive hype and corporate intent for automation clashing with the current measured stability in the aggregate labor market. The calm is real, but likely temporary.
Okay.
Second, productivity versus polarization.
Yeah.
AI is boosting productivity and has the potential to create enormous wealth. But the benefits right now seem to be concentrating, widening the skills gap, and worsening existing inequalities like that stark gender disparity and job risk we discussed.
Got it. Third tension.
Third, potential versus preparedness, especially in education. We see the incredible potential of AI to personalize learning and boost outcomes dramatically, those 50% plus gains. But it's hitting a wall of unpreparedness, high student use of the tools, but dangerously low literacy and ethical grounding, compounded by faculty and institutions lagging behind.
And the final one.
Finally, innovation versus inclusion. The cutting edge of AI innovation and its economic benefits are heavily concentrated geographically, mostly in advanced economies with the right infrastructure. This creates a new AI divide globally, threatening to leave developing nations even further behind because of that fundamental digital infrastructure gap.
So hype versus reality, productivity versus polarization, potential versus preparedness, innovation versus inclusion. Those 4 tensions really frame the challenge ahead.
They do, and they all point back to that central idea we started with, this current moment of relative stability.
Yeah.
It's not a sign that the disruption isn't coming.
It's a window.
It's a critical but temporary window of opportunity. The deep structural changes driven by automation are happening. They're just taking time to fully manifest in the aggregate data. We have maybe a few years to prepare before that wave truly hits.
So what does preparing look like? What should be happening in this window?
The research points to clear priorities. Governments and businesses need to act now, while things are relatively calm. That means serious, large-scale investment in reskilling and upskilling, maybe national voucher programs like some have suggested, to tackle that talent rotation challenge head-on.
Okay, reskilling. What else?
In education, it means setting clear, mandatory AI literacy standards across all disciplines, not just tech fields, and supporting faculty to integrate it effectively. And globally, it means massive public and private investment to bridge that digital divide. internet access, affordable devices, foundational digital skills.
So fix the skills gap, fix the literacy gap, fix the access gap. Do it now before the automation wave crests.
Because if we don't use this window, if we let inertia win, when the deeper automation does hit the labor market more broadly, the shock will be far more severe, and the most vulnerable populations, those already facing disadvantages, will inevitably bear the brunt.
The changes might already be deeper than we realize, too, if our GDP metrics are missing a lot of the value being created non-traditionally.
That's also true. Job roles are morphing, even if job titles aren't changing yet. Value is shifting in ways our spreadsheets don't capture.
Which leaves us with a pretty stark final question for listeners to ponder as we close this edition of Tomorrow Unveiled. You framed it really well earlier.
What's that?
Given the policy inertia we see in so many places, the slow response on reskilling, the persistent infrastructure gaps, the difficulty agreeing on a new social contract, will this next phase of AI's impact be defined more by the power of the technology itself? Or will it be defined by the strength or weakness of the social safety nets and the educational foundations that we managed to build or fail to build during this current period of deceptive calm?
That really is the crucial question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Technology pushes, but society decides how to respond.
A lot to think about. And if you found this deep dive insightful and you're watching on YouTube, please do take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Tomorrow Unveiled, and maybe even hit that new hype button. Apparently it helps us reach more viewers. And definitely turn on notifications so you don't miss our next exploration of the future.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive on Tomorrow Unveiled.
We'll see you next time.